Hey, what's up, guys? We're back here on the YouTube channel. Took obviously a few days off, as I mentioned in the last one. We are now complete with the first two races of the High Limit Racing season. Today, we're going to be talking about the first night, if you want to call it that, of action for the series. Clearly, I would not be able to fit both nights on my whiteboard, so that is going to have to be a separate video. So this is what we've got for the first race. And we're going to go through and just kind of break everything down. And if I kind of remember something that happened, then I will talk about it. But basically going over the results of the first race of the season. So we showed up to East Bay on Monday, and 56 cars were in the pit area for the first race of the year. A really, really good car count. I think a lot of people were kind of surprised to see that many cars, including myself, showing up to the very first race. So with that being said, 56 cars split the flights into two, so flight A and B for qualifying. And real quick before I get into that, the blue names or the blue ink on the board, that represents a full-time driver or a high roller with the series, so they are written in blue. The green is where they started at in that particular event. And then the black ink is just the drivers that are not high rollers. So here we go. Flight A qualifying. Brad Sweet was the quickest driver overall in qualifying with a 12.550 lap time. Justin Pett, Kyle Larson, Corey Day, and Parker Price Miller rounding out the top five in the first flight of qualifying. Then Tanner Thorson, Spencer Baston, and the biggest surprise, quite possibly, of the night was Kevin Newton qualifying in the 8th position. Kevin Newton, I would say last year was kind of really his first big, jump into sprint car racing, whether that was non-wing or wing, and he did a great job this night with an 8th place qualifying effort. And then Jacob Allen, who was the DJ of the night with the high roller playlist, he was 9th quick, and Austin McCarl rounded out the top 10. Flight B, we had Anthony Macri go quick time with a 12.612, so Brad Sweet the fastest overall out of everybody. Then Haferteep was second, then Cole Macedo, Zeb Wise, Ryan Timms, Rico Abreu, Danny Dietrich, Tyler Courtney, Casey Kane, and Brent Marsh rounded out the top 10 in Flight B qualifying. Now, the next time I do this, not in the next video, but for Golden Isles, I'm going to flip these around, have the heat races on the top and the lower mains and the dash on the bottom. But right into the, before I get to that, that was when, if you weren't watching on Flow, you don't really know what was going on. That was when the rain came. There was a torrential downpour, there was sideways rain, there was a lake on the front straightaway, and unfortunately, after we ran the non-qualifier race, I believe it was, that was when we had to end the program and had to come back on Tuesday and run a double show. So we were able to get qualifying in, we were able to get the non-qualifier in, and then after that, we had to come back the next day and run the rest of the program. I don't have it written on the board here, but the non-qualifier, the transfers were Chris Martin, Brian Gossel, Andy Pake, and Christopher Traum. Those 4 drivers would go to the back of each heat race and try and race into the top 5. So in the heat races, the top 5 finishers transfer, and the fastest transfer and the winner of the heat race would go on to the dash. So in heat race number 1, Kyle Larson, he would win it from the pole. He would go to the dash. Parker Price Miller would end up in 2nd. Brad Sweet would drive from 4th to 3rd, and he would lock himself into the dash as the fastest qualifier to transfer. Spencer Baston 4th, and Jacob Allen ended up in 5th. After that, the non-transfer cars, Tim Schaefer, Mark Smith, Aaron Reitzel, who was actually late to staging for that heat race. He was supposed to start in 7th, ended up starting in 9th, and so that definitely affected him. Danny Sams in 9th, and then Chris Martin finished in 10th in heat race number 1. Heat race number 2, and this was very, very surprising, and I love to see it though. My good friend Tanner Thorson would end up getting the win in heat race number 2. He started 2nd, and a lot of the times throughout the weekend, whether it was in this first day show or if it was in the night show, the outside groove on the starts, it seemed like, was really the place to be. And as you can see here, in this one, in heat 4 it happened, and in heat 2 it happened, where the guy from the outside of the front row would go on to win. Tanner Thorson, proving the haters wrong, proving the doubters wrong. He was fast right out of the gate, so he won. Then Corey Day finished in 2nd. Thorson would go to the dash. Justin Peck would join him in the dash with a 3rd place effort after being the fastest qualifier in that heat race. Kevin Newton would keep the night going strong. He would finish in 4th and give one hell of an interview to Tony Laporte on the front straightaway. That was maybe the feel-good story of the weekend for Kevin Newton. He ended up 4th there, and then Austin McCarl would hang on to the last transfer spot. sending one of our high rollers to the B main, Chris Wyndham, and then Dylan Norris, Riley Goodnow, Devin Borden, and Davey Franek would also go to one of the lower main events. Heat race number 3, Kevin Newton's weekend kept going when Cole Macedo in his other car would go on to win after starting on the pole. So Macedo would get the win in Heat 3. He would go to the dash. Ryan Timms finished in second. Anthony Macri went 4th to 3rd. He was the fastest transfer car, so he would go to the dash as well. Corey Eliason drove from 6th to 4th to grab that transfer spot. And then Danny Dietrich losing a couple of positions, going 3rd to 5th, but still able to get into the feature. Casey Kane, a high roller, going to the B main. Sterling Kling finished 7th. Connor Morell, another high roller, missing the show out of the heat race. Ryan Harrison and Andy Pake rounded out the top 10 in Heat 3. Heat race number 4, Rico from the outside of the front row would win it over Zeb Wise. So Rico goes to the dash. Sam Hafertepe Jr., as you can tell, the theme was 4th to 3rd, 4th to 3rd, 4th to 3rd, 4th to 3rd. Hafertepe, the fastest qualifier to transfer, he would go to the dash as well. Tyler Courtney, he ended up in 4th, and Dominic Scelzi comes from outside of a transfer spot to end up in 5th. Dominic Scelzi, if you're not up to date or whatever, he is going to be running the next couple of races for James McFadden. McFadden having issues getting over here from Australia, so Scelzi stepped into the Roth Motorsports 83 and had a decent run, as we'll talk about here later on in the program. Brett Marks was kind of surprising, did not make it out of the heat race. He had to run the B. Keith Sheffer in 7th, Dale Howard 8th, another one of our high rollers, Brenham Crouch, ended up in 9th, and Christopher Traum rounded out the top 10. Now jumping over back up to the top side of the board here, the C main, it would be Chris Martin taking down the win in that one over Davey Franek. Both of those guys having the lead for quite a few laps. I mean, they swapped the lead a lot there in that C main. It was pretty exciting stuff. And I want to mention that the racetrack, the track crew at East Bay did a hell of a job. And it wasn't just for the day show, but for the night show as well. They know exactly what they're doing at that place. And I feel like they kind of have to when they race for, 3 weeks in a row during the Winter Nationals. So the racetrack was absolutely perfect. So missing the show out of the C main, and their night would come to an end. Andy Pake, Chris Traum, Wayne Johnson, Ben Brown, Lance Moss, Chris Martin, Brian Gossel, and Brendan Mullen. Now on to the B main event. Tim Schaefer, he would get the win from the pole. Brett Marks would drive from 4th to 2nd to grab a transfer spot. Casey Kane ended up in 3rd, and Chris Wyndham would end up in P4. Now, Aaron Reitzel was up there inside of those transfer spots, or kind of right around that spot. He was running in 5th and spun out by himself in turn number 2, and so he finished a little bit farther down the order, not in the top 10 for me to fit him on this board. It was a tough night for the 87 of Aaron Reitzel. Now, behind the transfers, Mark Smith finished 5th, then Sterling Kling, who was, I feel like he was actually pretty good. I was kind of impressed with Sterling Kling. Sure, he didn't make the show, but he showed some decent speed in qualifying and throughout the night. Dale Howard, 7th. Danny Sams was 8th. Brenham Crouch, one of our high rollers, misses the show. And then Riley Goodnow finished in the 10th position. Moving on to the dash, which was 7 laps. Kyle Larson, as you can see here, drove from the outside of the front row to the win. So that's the 3rd time that we saw that happen here tonight, or on this night, I should say. And then Brad Sweet, he finished 2nd. So Larson and Sweet on the front row of the feature. Tanner Thorson would drop from 1st to 3rd in this dash. Cole Macedo, Rico Abreu, Justin Peck, Sam Hafertepe Jr., and Anthony Macri would be the finishing order for the dash. Then we would move on to the feature event, and 25 laps of action, and was there some action? I know Kyle Larson led all 25 laps, but he was challenged several times by Justin Peck, by Tanner Thorson, by Cole Macedo as well. It was not a walk in the park at all for Kyle Larson. He had to make some serious moves from lap traffic. A couple of times Tanner Thorson got in front of him, but was not able to lead officially at the line. So Kyle Larson does lead all 25 laps of this feature event to take down the $10,000 win. I do have some asterisks here next to some drivers who impressed me. And obviously the front two up there, Cole Macedo, he definitely impressed me. His first night out in the 16TH for Kevin Newton. And I found this interesting, that the Honest Abe Roofing cars, that's the cars that they're sponsored by a company called Honest Abe Roofing. It was actually Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And Cole Macedo would almost win the feature, and Kevin Newton would actually make the show. So found that quite interesting. Tanner Thorson finishes in 3rd. He's got an asterisk next to his name because, let's face it, a lot of people had their doubts about Tanner Thorson and what this team would be able to accomplish, including myself, to be quite honest with you. But man, did they come out of the gate swinging, finished in the 3rd spot, just barely at the finish line. Cole Macedo actually hit the wall to get around Tanner right at the finish line to finish in 2nd. Also, Corey Day, he was solid. He drove from 11th up to the 6th position. Brent Marks was the hard charger, had to come out of the B main. He drives from 22nd to get up to 8th position. So plus 16, is that right? Or is that, no, plus 14, no. 22 minus 8, what is that? That's 14. 14 positions. Math, I am terrible at math. I had to take calculus 3 different times in college, so forgive me for that. So a big move for Brent Marks, who finished up in 8th. Dominic Scelzi, as I mentioned earlier, he was pretty solid the first night out in the Roth Motorsports car. I know he's drove that car in the past a long time ago, but for I guess a situation that was kind of last minute, I feel like James McFadden can't make it. Let's call Dominic Scelzi. He gets into the car. He drives from 20th up to the 12th position, trying to keep the Roth Motorsports 83 in the hunt for one of those coveted charter positions at the end of the season. Also with an asterisk is Justin Peck, who in my opinion might have had the car to beat in this race. He started in 6th and he drove from 6th to 2nd on the very first lap of the race. And so he was really, really strong, was keeping pace with Kyle Larson. They get to the back of the field. Larson makes it around a couple of lap cars, and Peck tries to do the same. And then as he's doing that, Chris Windham is racing with another one of the drivers who's kind of off the pace there. And Peck tries to go to the outside. Windham doesn't know he's there, comes up the track and folds up the front end on the Buick Motorsports 13 car. So Justin Peck, he's got one of the guys with the worst luck in racing right now. He ends up in 26 after running 2nd and potentially having a really, really good shot to get the win. And so that's where he ends up. Also, you might be wondering why there's 26 starters. There were 2 drivers to take high-limit racing provisionals, that being Brenham Crouch and Connor Morrell. So that's why we had 26 starters. Also, I have a couple of question marks on the board. Brad Sweet finishing in the 4th position. He started 2nd and went back to 4th. That is not something that we see very often from the 5-time World Outlaws champion. I think his car was just that little bit off throughout the weekend. When we get into the 2nd preview in a separate video, you'll see that kind of that trend was still, that was still the trend when it came to the 2nd race of the night. So Brad Sweet, 2nd to 4th. Still a solid run, obviously, for the first race of the year. And a question mark for Rico Abreu. He went from 5th to 7th in that race, and I feel like that was a track that was right up the alley of Rico Abreu. It was slick, it was wide, there was a big curb to lean on in turns 1 and 2, there was a nice bottom to run. The track, I don't know if I mentioned it enough, the track was super, super good here for this day show. The guys at East Bay killed it, and then when we talk about it in the 2nd preview, they got it turned around in about an hour, and it was really good for the 2nd portion of the night as well. So those are the guys that I thought I should kind of highlight here for this race. Let's look at the top 10 feature finishers. Larson led all 25 laps. He got the $10,000 victory. Cole Macedo finished in 2nd with Tanner Thorson in 3rd. Great, great, great run for those 2 guys. They were super impressive, and I don't think anybody had them as 2 drivers that were going to be on the podium for the first high-limit race of the year. Brad Sweet was 4th. Anthony Macri was 5th. Corey Day, Rico Abreu, Brent Marks, great run for Sam Hayford Jr. in the 9th position, and Spencer Baston moved up to 10th after starting in the 13th spot. Zeb-wise, you got a bunch of our high rollers here. I do have Scelzi in blue because that car is a high roller car. So Baston-wise, Scelzi, not a good run at all for Tyler Courtney. I probably should have put a question mark next to him because coming into this race, he had won the last 2 in a row with the All-Stars at East Bay, and he just did not have the speed in the first race, but you'll see later on in the next preview for race number 2 that he found that speed once again, but not a very good first feature. Parker Price Miller, 14th. Ryan Timms ended up in 15th, and then a couple of guys who had tough nights. Danny Dietrich, Brennan Crouch had to use a provisional, finished in 17th. Tim Schaefer, Corey Eliason, and Casey Kane round out the top 20. Then Jacob Allen, Austin McCarl, Chris Windham, Connor Morrell, Kevin Newton, and Justin Peck. So I want to say those last 3 are the only ones that did not actually take the checkered flag in the race, that being Morrell, Newton, and Peck, as they all got into some kind of incident or had some kind of mechanical problem and had to pull off the racetrack. So in the future for these videos, I'm going to add more stuff to the board when it comes to the points and maybe the winnings for each driver, how much they won, whether that's the winner's share, the last place guy, the 10th place guy. I want to have the winnings on there. And obviously, I'm guessing for the next couple of races, we're not going to have 56 cars showing up. And so I'll have a lot more room on the board to write some more stuff, some more stats, and some more pertinent information to these videos. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this style of video. I did talk to some of the guys at FloRacing over the weekend, and it kind of sounds like they want to take these videos and use them potentially on the High Limit broadcast in the future. They want to have somebody come over here and kind of build a little bit of a studio, better lighting, a better camera, other stuff like that to try and beef up the production value of these videos. So I'm not saying that's going to happen anytime soon, but they did seem quite interested and open to doing that. They approached me about it. So glad that these videos are that entertaining. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the subscribers, and we will see you guys tomorrow when I recap the second race of the season for the High Limit Racing Series. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and let me know down in the comment section below, what did you think of the race if you were there? What did you think of the broadcast at home on Flo? Want to hear you guys' thoughts, and we will see you tomorrow for another one of these videos. Thank you.